When Berlin fell in April 1945, the Nazi Empire crumbled into dust. Thousands of German soldiers retreated underground, into bunkers, into tunnels, into the darkness beneath the city. Most surrendered, most died, but some bunkers were sealed and never opened. For 80 years, construction workers have reported strange things beneath Berlin. Sounds from sealed chambers, voices speaking German, commands from 1945. Everyone ignored them until 2019. A construction crew accidentally broke into a sealed bunker. They found Wehrmacht uniforms hanging neatly, weapons stacked in corners, Nazi flags on the walls. But no bodies, no skeletons, nothing. Just fresh boot prints in 80 years of dust, and something waiting in the darkness. Tonight, one of the workers finally speaks. What they found, what found them, and what followed them back to the surface. But before I tell you what lives under Berlin, subscribe and support Battlefield Nightmares. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from tonight? Now let's go underground, into Hitler's bunker, into the darkness that never surrendered.
They tell me I'm crazy. The doctors, the psychiatrists, my family, everyone. They say what I saw wasn't real, couldn't be real, that my mind broke from stress and I imagined everything. But I know what I saw. I know what touched me. I know what followed me home. And I know it's still here, right now, in this room, standing in the corner where the shadows are deepest, watching me with those white eyes, waiting. My name is Klaus Weber. I'm 47 years old. I was a construction worker in Berlin for 23 years. I say was because I can't work anymore, can't leave my apartment, can't close my eyes without seeing them. The doctors diagnosed me with acute psychotic disorder, trauma-induced hallucinations. They give me pills that make everything foggy, but don't make the soldiers go away. My wife left 6 months ago, took our daughter, said she couldn't live with a madman, said I was scaring them. She's right. I am scaring now, because I'm not alone anymore. I'm never alone. There are 4 of them, 4 Nazi soldiers who followed me out of that bunker. Hitler's soldiers, men who swore an oath to the Führer and never broke it, not even in death. They stand in my apartment. They watch me sleep. They whisper to me in German from 1945. And every night, they ask me the same question. Did we win the war? Did the Führer's vision come true? I tell them no. Germany lost. Hitler is dead. He shot himself in his bunker on April 30th, 1945. The war ended 80 years ago. They don't believe me. They can't believe me. In their minds, Hitler is still alive. The war is still being fought. Victory is still possible. And they want me to help them. They want me to join them. They want me to become one of them. And I don't know how much longer I can resist. So I'm telling this story now, while I'm still me, while I can still remember who I was before I went into that bunker. This is the truth about what we found under Berlin. Hitler's soldiers who never surrendered, and Hitler's soldiers who never died.
To understand what happened, you need to understand the end. April 1945, the final days of Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany. Hitler had ruled Germany for 12 years, 12 years of terror, 12 years of war, 12 years of death. He had conquered most of Europe, France, Poland, Belgium, Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, Austria, Czechoslovakia, parts of the Soviet Union, and then he lost it all. The Soviet Red Army was closing in on Berlin from the east. 2.5 million soldiers, the largest military force ever assembled, coming to crush what remained of Hitler's empire. Berlin was defended by old men and young boys. Hitler's once mighty Wehrmacht was shattered. The Luftwaffe had no fuel. The Waffen-SS was fighting desperate rearguard actions in the rubble. Everyone knew the war was lost. Everyone except Hitler. From his bunker deep beneath the Reich Chancellery, the famous Führerbunker, Hitler issued orders to armies that no longer existed. He moved phantom divisions on maps while Soviet shells exploded above him. His generals begged him to flee, to escape to the Alps, to continue the fight from somewhere else. Hitler refused. He would die in Berlin, in his bunker, in the heart of his empire. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler married his mistress, Eva Braun. Hours later, he put a pistol in his mouth and pulled the trigger. His body was carried to the garden above the bunker and burned with gasoline. The Soviets found the charred remains days later. The war in Europe ended on May 8th, Victory in Europe Day. Hitler was dead. The Nazi regime was finished. But for thousands of German soldiers still underground, Hitler's war never ended. You see, Berlin was honeycombed with bunkers, not just Hitler's famous Führerbunker. Hundreds of bunkers, thousands of underground chambers, command posts, supply depots, hospital facilities, civilian shelters. Hitler had ordered the construction of a vast underground network, a shadow city beneath Berlin, where the Reich could survive any bombing. When the Soviets entered the city, many German soldiers retreated into Hitler's tunnels. Some surrendered. Some committed suicide, following their Führer into death. Some tried to escape, and some simply disappeared. The Soviets didn't have time to search every bunker. The war was over. There were millions of prisoners to process, a shattered city to occupy, a new world order to establish. So many of Hitler's bunkers were simply sealed. Entrances collapsed with explosives, covered with rubble, buried and forgotten. The Soviets knew some of Hitler's soldiers were still inside. They didn't care. "Let them die down there," the commander said. "Let them rot with their Führer's dreams." But the soldiers didn't die. At least not in the way the Soviets expected.
For 80 years, construction workers in Berlin have reported strange things. When the wall came down in 1989, Berlin began rebuilding. New foundations were dug. Old ruins were demolished. Hitler's city was being erased, transformed into something new. And workers kept finding things. Hitler's bunkers, Nazi tunnels, underground chambers built by the Third Reich that weren't on any map. Most were empty, cleared out long ago, water damaged and collapsed. But some were different. Workers would report sounds from sealed chambers, voices speaking German, footsteps, music, old Nazi military marches, the songs Hitler's armies sang as they conquered Europe. They'd report cold spots in tunnels that should have been warm, the feeling of being watched, of not being alone. One worker in 1992 claimed he saw a German soldier standing at the end of a tunnel, Wehrmacht uniform, Hitler's army, helmet, rifle, just standing there, watching. When he shined his flashlight at the figure, it was gone. Everyone laughed at him, called him drunk, called him crazy. He quit the next day, refused to ever go underground again, refused to ever walk above Hitler's buried empire. There were other stories, workers who heard their names called in the tunnels by voices they didn't recognize, equipment that would move on its own, photographs that showed strange shapes in the darkness, shapes wearing swastikas. Nobody took it seriously, just ghost stories, workers amusing themselves. Until March 2019, until we found the bunker, Hitler's forgotten bunker. I was part of a crew excavating for a new apartment building in Mitte, the heart of Berlin. the historic center, the place where Hitler had built his Reich chancellery, where he had planned his conquests, where he had died. Every construction project in Mitte requires archaeological supervision. The ground there is layered with history, Roman settlements, medieval foundations, Prussian structures, Nazi construction, Soviet occupation. We were used to finding things: old bricks, unexploded bombs from the Allied raids that destroyed Hitler's capital, human remains from the final battle. But what we found on March 15, 2019 was different. We were digging the foundation pit, 8 meters down. The excavator hit something solid, not rock, concrete, reinforced concrete, Nazi construction, the same concrete Hitler used for his bunkers. The operator stopped. We gathered around, started clearing the debris by hand. It was a roof, a concrete roof 2 meters below the water table, built to survive anything the Allies could drop on it. Our supervisor, Thomas, made some calls, checked the historical records. There was no bunker on the maps at this location, nothing in the Soviet archives, nothing in the city plans. An unknown bunker, one of Hitler's secret installations, sealed since the Führer's death. Thomas wanted to call the authorities, let the historians handle it, but we were behind schedule. The developers were pressuring us. Every day of delay cost thousands of euros, so Thomas made a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. "We'll just take a look," he said. "See if it's empty. If there's anything historical, anything related to Hitler, we'll report it. If not, we'll fill it in and keep building." We broke through the roof. The hole opened into darkness, complete darkness. Air that hadn't moved since Hitler was alive rushed out. It smelled like dust, like concrete, like the death of an empire, and something else underneath, something wrong, sweet and rotten and ancient. "Who wants to go first?" Thomas asked. Nobody volunteered, so I did. Biggest mistake of my life. We lowered a ladder through the hole. I went first, then Thomas, then Eric, then Mahmoud. 4 of us descending into Hitler's darkness. The flashlight beams cut through the dust, disturbing air that Hitler's soldiers had breathed 80 years ago. The bunker was bigger than we expected. The room we dropped into was some kind of storage area. Shelves along the walls, crates stacked in corners, all marked with Nazi eagles and swastikas. "Careful," Thomas whispered. "Could be unexploded ordnance. Hitler's engineers booby-trapped a lot of these places." We moved slowly, checking every step. The first thing I noticed was the temperature. It was cold, much colder than it should have been. Underground usually stays constant, around 10 degrees Celsius. This felt like a freezer. I could see my breath. "Why is it so cold?" Mahmoud asked. Nobody answered. We moved through the storage room into a corridor. Nazi architecture, functional, brutal, efficient. The same style Hitler demanded for all Reich buildings. Concrete walls, low ceiling, no decoration except for stenciled text in German. "Forwards for Führer and Fatherland. Forward for Führer and Fatherland." The corridor stretched into darkness beyond our lights. Doorways opened on either side. Rooms, chambers, more corridors branching off. "This is big," Eric said. "This was a major installation. Hitler must have used this for something important." He was right. This wasn't some small shelter. This was a command facility, one of Hitler's secret headquarters. Why wasn't it on any map? What had Hitler hidden here? The first room we entered made us stop breathing. It was a dormitory. Bunk beds along the walls, lockers,
A small table in the center with chairs. And everything was perfect. Not destroyed, not decayed. Perfect. Preserved as if Hitler had just died yesterday. The bunks were made, blankets folded with military precision, uniforms hanging in open lockers, Wehrmacht field gray, the uniforms of Hitler's army. Boots arranged neatly beneath the beds. On the table there were plates, cups, a half-finished chess game, and photographs. Framed photographs on the walls. Hitler in every one. Hitler giving speeches, Hitler reviewing troops, Hitler shaking hands with officers, Hitler's face everywhere, watching over his soldiers even in this forgotten bunker. "What the hell?" Thomas whispered. I moved closer to the lockers, shined my light on the uniforms. No dust. That was wrong. Everything else in the bunker was covered in dust, but these uniforms were clean, pressed, ready to wear, ready for Hitler's soldiers to put on and continue fighting. I reached out to touch one. "Don't," Mahmoud said. His voice was sharp, scared. I pulled my hand back. "We should go," Mahmoud said. "This place, it feels wrong. Like Hitler's ghost is still here." "We need to document this," Thomas replied. "For the authorities, this could be historically significant, one of Hitler's secret command posts." We moved on, into the next room, and the next. Every room was the same, preserved, waiting. Empty of people, but full of their possessions, full of Hitler's symbols. A medical station with surgical instruments laid out on a tray, a Nazi flag draped over the operating table, a communications room with radio equipment and code books open on desks, a portrait of Hitler hanging above the radio, a kitchen with pots on a stove that looked like they'd been used yesterday, Nazi eagles stamped on the dishware. And nowhere were their bodies. That's what finally made me understand that something was wrong. "Where are Hitler's soldiers?" I asked. Thomas shook his head. "Evacuated, probably, before the bunker was sealed, before Hitler died." "Then who made the beds? Who cleaned the uniforms? Who set the table?" Nobody answered, because there was no answer. Not one that made sense.
We found them in the command center, the largest room in the bunker. Maps on the walls, old military maps of Berlin with unit positions marked, the final defense of Hitler's capital. A large table in the center covered with documents, Nazi flags hanging limply in the stale air. And above everything, the largest portrait of Hitler I'd ever seen. Hitler in his brown uniform, his arm raised in salute, his eyes staring down at anyone who entered this room. Even in a photograph, those eyes were terrifying. And the boot prints, fresh boot prints in the dust on the floor, right beneath Hitler's portrait. My flashlight followed them across the room. They led from a side door to the main table, then around the table, then back to the side door. Boot prints, clear, distinct, made by military boots, in a bunker that had been sealed since Hitler's suicide. "Someone's been here," Eric said. His voice was shaking. "That's impossible," Thomas replied. "We broke the seal ourselves. No one could—" He stopped. We all heard it. Footsteps, coming from the corridor behind us, from somewhere beneath Hitler's portrait. Slow, deliberate, military precision, the march of Hitler's soldiers. Links, rechts, left, right, getting closer. We spun around, flashlights aimed at the doorway. The footsteps stopped. Silence, just Hitler's eyes staring down at us. "Hello?" Thomas called. Who's there? His voice echoed through the bunker, through Hitler's forgotten tomb. Nothing. It's just settling, Thomas said. Old concrete, settling sounds. That wasn't settling. That was marching. Someone was marching. Hitler's soldiers are still here. There's nothing here, Thomas snapped, but his voice cracked. He was scared too. I'm leaving, Mahmoud said. He started toward the corridor. Mahmoud, wait! He didn't wait. He walked into the corridor beneath Hitler's watching eyes and stopped, frozen. Mahmoud? He didn't respond, just stood there, staring at something we couldn't see. I moved toward him, shined my light past him into the corridor, and I saw him. One of Hitler's soldiers, standing at the end of the corridor, maybe 20 meters away. Wehrmacht uniform, the uniform of Hitler's army. Helmet, rifle slung over his shoulder, standing perfectly still, serving his Führer even in death. My first thought was, this is a joke. Someone is playing a joke on us. Someone dressed up in Hitler's uniform. Then my flashlight found his face. White, not pale, white, like paper, like snow, like bone. And the eyes, no color, no pupils, just white, solid white, glowing faintly in the darkness. He smiled, a wide smile, too wide, more teeth than a human mouth should hold. And he spoke. Willkommen, Kameraden, der Führer schickt uns. Welcome, comrades, the Führer sends us. The voice was wrong, hollow like it came from the bottom of a grave, like it came from Hitler's hell. Wir haben auf euch gewartet. Wir dienen dem Führer noch immer. We've been waiting for you. We still serve the Führer.
Mahmoud ran. Straight at the figure. I don't know why. Panic, maybe? Fight or flight kicking in wrong? He ran at Hitler's soldier and passed through him. Like running through smoke, through shadow, through nothing solid at all. Mahmoud stumbled, fell, scrambled to his feet. And there were more of them now. Hitler's soldiers, stepping out of doorways, rising from shadows, materializing from the darkness of Hitler's bunker. 5, 10, 15, all wearing the same uniforms, all with the same white faces, the same white eyes, the same terrible smiles, all loyal to a Führer who had been dead for 80 years. They moved toward us. Not walking, gliding. Their feet didn't quite touch the floor. Bleibt bei uns, der Führer braucht mehr Soldaten. Stay with us, the Führer needs more soldiers. Es ist kalt da oben, hier ist es warm, here by Hitler. Stay forever, serve the Führer forever. Thomas grabbed my arm. The ladder, go! We ran, through the command center, past Hitler's portrait, through the corridors of Hitler's tomb. The soldiers followed. I could hear them behind us, that marching sound, the march of Hitler's eternal army. Links, rechts, links, rechts. Getting closer. We reached the storage room, the ladder, the hole in the ceiling with daylight pouring through, escape from Hitler's darkness. Eric was first. He scrambled up the ladder like his life depended on it. Because it did. Thomas went next, then me. Mahmoud was last. He was halfway up the ladder when he screamed. I looked down. One of Hitler's soldiers had grabbed his ankle, white hand wrapped around his boot, pulling him back down to serve the Führer. "Help me!" Thomas and I grabbed Mahmoud's arms, pulled. The soldier pulled back. Mahmoud's body was being stretched. His face was contorted in agony. "Let go!" Thomas screamed at the figure below. The soldier looked up at us. Those white eyes, that smile, Hitler's servant. Gehört jetzt dem Führer. He belongs to the Führer now. Mahmoud screamed again. Not a scream of pain this time, something worse. His eyes rolled back. The color drained from his face. His body went rigid. And then he started speaking. German. Perfect German. Words from 1945. Words from Hitler's time. Für Führer und Vaterland, Heil Hitler. Für Führer und Vaterland, Heil Hitler. Over and over, in a voice that wasn't his, in Hitler's voice.
We pulled him up, somehow. I don't know where the strength came from. We dragged Mahmoud onto the surface, into the daylight, away from Hitler's soldiers. The soldiers below didn't follow. They stood at the bottom of the ladder, looking up at us with those white eyes, waiting, serving their dead Führer. Then, slowly, they faded, dissolving back into Hitler's shadows. Gone. But Mahmoud wasn't okay. He was lying on his back, eyes still rolled back, only the whites showing. His body was convulsing, shaking, his mouth was foaming, and he was still speaking, still chanting Hitler's words. Für Führer und Vaterland, Sieg Heil, für Führer und Vaterland. Call an ambulance, Thomas shouted. Eric was already on the phone. Mahmoud's convulsions got worse. His back arched off the ground, his limbs twisted at wrong angles, as if Hitler himself was possessing him. And then he vomited. Not normal vomit. Black, thick, like oil, like tar, like something from Hitler's hell. It poured out of his mouth in a stream, more than a human stomach could hold, gallons of it spreading across the dirt. And in the black liquid, I saw things, shapes, symbols, swastikas, iron crosses, Hitler's eagles, words in German. The liquid was writing on the ground. Helft uns, help us, befreit uns, free us. Der Führer lebt, the Führer lives. Mahmoud's body collapsed. The convulsions stopped. The chanting stopped. For a moment, I thought he was dead, taken by Hitler's soldiers. Then, his eyes opened. Normal eyes, brown, scared, human. What happened? He whispered. What happened to me? I saw him. I saw Hitler. He's down there, waiting. We didn't answer. The ambulance came. They took Mahmoud away. The paramedics were confused by the black liquid. They collected samples, asked questions we couldn't answer. Thomas sealed the hole with a tarp and cones, told everyone to go home, said we'd report Hitler's bunker to the authorities tomorrow. We never reported it, because by the next morning, something else had happened.
Eric died that night. Heart attack, the doctors said. Massive cardiac arrest. 34 years old. No history of heart problems. Healthy, athletic. Dead at 3:47 a.m. The hour when Hitler used to wake from his nightmares. His wife said he'd been screaming in his sleep. Speaking German, she said. But Eric didn't speak German. He was shouting about Hitler, about the Führer, about serving forever. When she tried to wake him, his eyes opened. She said they were white, completely white, no pupils, no irises, like Hitler's soldiers in the bunker. He looked at her and said, Der Führer ruft mich. Hitler ruft. The Führer is calling me. Hitler is calling. Then his heart stopped. Thomas visited me that afternoon. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. We need to seal that bunker, he said. Pour concrete, bury Hitler's soldiers forever. Make sure no one ever goes down there again. I agreed. But when we got to the construction site, the hole was already sealed. Fresh concrete, perfectly smooth, still wet. Who did this? Thomas demanded.
No one knew. The night security guard hadn't seen anything. The site had been empty all night, but the hole was sealed, as if Hitler's soldiers had done it from inside, as if they wanted to protect their Führer's tomb. Thomas stared at the concrete for a long time. "Good," he finally said. "Good. It's over. Hitler's soldiers can stay down there forever. We'll never speak of this again." He was wrong. It wasn't over. Hitler's war was just beginning again.
Thomas lasted 3 weeks. He started seeing things. Hitler's soldiers in the corners of rooms, figures in Nazi uniforms standing outside his window at night. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating. His wife found him once at 3 a.m., standing in the basement, digging at the concrete floor with his bare hands. His fingers were bleeding, nails torn off. He was muttering in German, muttering about Hitler. "Ich muss sie rauslassen. Der Führer befiehlt es. Hitler befiehlt." I have to let them out. The Führer commands it. Hitler commands. The psychiatrists called it a breakdown, stress and trauma. They committed him. He hung himself in the psychiatric ward on the 8th day. The nurses said he'd been calm, cooperative, taking his medication. Then at 3:47 a.m., Hitler's hour, he made a noose from his bed sheets. They found him hanging from the window bars. His face was peaceful, smiling, the smile of Hitler's soldiers, and his eyes were white. On the wall of his room, written in his own blood, were 2 words: Heil Hitler.
Mahmoud disappeared. After he was released from the hospital, he went home. Seemed okay at first, shaken but functioning. The doctors said there was no lasting damage from the possession, but he'd wake up speaking German, quoting Hitler's speeches. He didn't remember any of it. Then one night he walked out of his apartment and never came back. The police found his car at a construction site across the city, a different site, nothing to do with Hitler's bunker we'd found. But there was a hole in the ground, fresh digging, like someone had been excavating with their bare hands, digging down to find another of Hitler's bunkers. Mahmoud's hands were found at the scene, just the hands, torn off at the wrists. The fingernails were gone, worn down to bone from digging. Mahmoud himself was never found, just a hole in the ground leading down to another sealed bunker, another of Hitler's tombs. The police marked it as a missing persons case. No leads, no evidence. But I know what happened. Hitler's soldiers took him. He belonged to the Führer now, just like they said. I'm the last one. The last of the 4 who went into Hitler's bunker. Eric is dead, Thomas is dead, Mahmoud is gone, serving Hitler forever. Only I remain. But I won't remain for long. They're with me now, all the time. Hitler's soldiers. At first, I only saw them at night, standing in the corners of my bedroom, watching me sleep, wearing their Nazi uniforms, loyal to their dead Führer. Then I started seeing them during the day, on the street, in the supermarket, at the doctor's office, always in their Wehrmacht uniforms, always with those white eyes, always smiling, always serving Hitler. They don't speak to me anymore. They don't need to. They're just waiting. Waiting for me to be ready. Waiting for me to join Hitler's army. Waiting for me to become one of them. The doctors say I'm psychotic. They give me medications that make everything blurry, but don't make Hitler's soldiers go away. My wife left. My daughter won't speak to me. My friends have abandoned me. I'm alone. Except for them, Hitler's eternal guard. The 4 of them. There are always 4, standing in the corners of whatever room I'm in. One is young, barely 18, a boy soldier from the Hitler Youth, drafted in the final days. One is old, gray hair, officer's uniform, Knight's Cross at his throat, one of Hitler's decorated heroes. One is massive, an SS sergeant, Waffen SS runes on his collar, scars on his face. And one is burned, half his face melted by Soviet flamethrowers, one white eye, one empty socket, still serving Hitler despite the flames. They are my companions now, Hitler's soldiers, my only companions, and soon I will join them in serving the Führer.
Last night, something changed. I woke at 3:47 a.m., Hitler's hour, the hour when Erich died, the hour when Thomas killed himself. Hitler's soldiers were there, as always, standing in the corners, guarding me. But this time, one of them moved. The young one, the Hitler youth boy. He walked toward my bed, slowly, his boots making no sound on the floor. He stopped at the edge of the bed, looked down at me, and he spoke. Es ist Zeit, Kamerad. Der Führer ruft dich. It's time, comrade. The Führer is calling you. Zeit zu uns zu kommen. Zeit zu Hitler zu dienen. Time to come to us. Time to serve Hitler. He reached out his hand, white, cold, like ice, like Hitler's frozen grave. Du bist einer von uns jetzt. Du bist Hitlers Soldat. I should have been scared. I should have run. I should have screamed. But I felt peace. For the first time since Hitler's bunker, I felt at peace. I reached out my hand toward his. Our fingers almost touched. And then my alarm went off. 6 a.m., time for my medication. The soldier faded, disappeared, like mist in sunlight. But the peace remained. And I understood. I'm not fighting anymore. I can't. There's no point. Hitler's soldiers have been waiting for 80 years, waiting in the darkness beneath Berlin, waiting in the Führer's bunkers, waiting for someone to open the tomb, waiting for someone to set them free. And now that we have, they want payment. Erich, Thomas, Mahmoud, me. 4 souls for Hitler's army. 4 more soldiers for the Führer. That seems fair, doesn't it?
I'm recording this as a warning, not because I think it will help, not because I think anyone will listen, but because someone needs to know the truth about Hitler's soldiers. The bunkers under Berlin are not empty. Hitler's army never left. They're still down there, waiting, in the darkness, in the cold, serving a Führer who died 80 years ago. And they're hungry for recruits. Every time a new bunker is opened, they claim more souls for Hitler. Every time the concrete is broken, they reach up and pull someone down to serve the Führer. The authorities know. They must. That's why so many of Hitler's bunkers are sealed without explanation. That's why the records are incomplete. They know what's down there. And they're trying to keep Hitler's soldiers contained. But they can't. Not forever. Berlin is built on Hitler's death, built on the death of his empire. Millions died in that city during the war. Soldiers, civilians, Jews sent to Hitler's death camps, Russians who stormed the streets. All that death soaked into the ground, all that pain, all that hatred, Hitler's hatred. It created something that wore the faces of the dead, something that walks in Wehrmacht uniforms, because that's what Hitler demanded, something that still serves the Führer. And every year the construction continues. Every year more of Hitler's bunkers are discovered. Every year more victims are taken to serve Hitler's ghost. It will never stop. Not until the last bunker is opened, not until every soul has been claimed for Hitler, not until the soldiers of 1945 finally complete Hitler's mission, whatever that mission was. I'm going to stop taking my medication now. The pills don't help, they just delay the inevitable. Hitler's soldiers are here, all 4 of them, waiting patiently, waiting for their new recruit. The young one is smiling. He knows I'm ready to serve the Führer. Tonight, I'll go with them, down into the darkness, into Hitler's bunker, into the cold. I'll put on a Wehrmacht uniform. I'll take my place among Hitler's ranks, and I'll wait for the next bunker to be opened, for the next workers to descend into Hitler's tomb, for the next souls to claim for the Führer. Did we win the war, they asked me? No. Germany lost. Hitler is dead. The Reich is dust. But down in the bunkers, Hitler's war never ended. Down in the darkness, Hitler's soldiers still fight. And now I'll fight with them. Forever. For Hitler. Forever. If you're ever in Berlin, stay away from construction sites. If you ever hear sounds from underground, voices speaking German, footsteps marching, Nazi anthems playing, walk away. If you ever see a soldier in a 1945 uniform, don't look at his eyes. Don't let him touch you. Run, because once they touch you, you belong to Hitler. And Hitler never lets go. Ich bin einer von Hitlers Soldaten jetzt. I am one of Hitler's soldiers now. Für Führer und Vaterland. For Führer and Fatherland. Heil Hitler. Für immer. Forever.